didn't think anybody thought it was too loud yesterday. They thought it was a bit loud the night before.
So this is communication which offers nothing at all to the individual. So you come to a meeting which for the individual, for the seeker, is absolutely pointless. Because as far as the seeker is concerned, the seeker, the me, the I, the self, is an artificial construct. The brain creates me, I, the self, in order to protect itself from what it thinks or sees the world as separate. The brain looks through the organism that it's in and looks out into the world at an early stage in birth, after birth, and assumes that the world is separate. This only happens, strangely enough, in a very sophisticated brain. It doesn't happen at the moment with animals. Animals don't have the capacity to abstract a sense of a separate individual function. So it's only uniquely humans that have this artificial construct called me, or the self, or the I, which becomes bigger and bigger as the child grows into an adult. So that sense of identity becomes more and more important, and it dominates most people's lives because they come to believe that that artificial identity is actually real. And not only that, but they come to believe that the artificial identity called me, or the self, or the I, has free will and choice, and it's running the show to some extent. And it can choose to make its story better or worse. And it has that autonomy. That's what it believes. And so directly the identity is formed in the tiny child. The brain creates this artificial me to protect itself from what it thinks is a separate world. Directly that happens, a clock starts ticking and a story begins. Out of that energy of being me, the story of me begins. And it goes on and on and on until it doesn't. But the story is also an artificial construct. Even the sense of there being time and a journey and events happening with a purpose, usually. The individual grows up and starts to believe that its life has a length of time and that life has a purpose. Even all of that is artificial. It's all constructed out of this sense of me. It's not real. But the individual thinks it's absolutely real. And so the individual spends their time seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. That's a very simplistic view, but that's actually what happens. And for most people, seeking pleasure is about making lots of money, or having lots of lovers, or having a lot of power, or being loved, so-called loved. And some people sort of create that by being victims, so professional victims, so that people give them attention. Or they play the game of being the good person who loves everybody else. It's a game, because directly the individual grows up, as the individual grows up, it has to create a role or several roles. It takes on a particular role in the world because it now finds that seems to work with other people. So all of that is an attempt to make the story work or make it better. So all of those things happen, and people try to gather in what they can to make their lives better. But for some people, none of that gathering in seems to be enough. And the reason is that, in a sense, what's happening is that the individual is living in a separate world. The individual is a separate creation out of the brain, which lives only in separation and only in time. And everything that it experiences is somehow separate and dissatisfying in some way or other. There seems to be something that's missing or in the way of fulfillment. So some people look deeper to find out what that is. But of course they're still convinced that they are the boss and they're the people that can find fulfillment. So they go and try and discover what that is through Christianity or Buddhism or learning about something called enlightenment. But there's still a conviction that they have to do it. So what we're talking about here, what we're sharing here, is another possibility. It's a very radical concept. It's a very radical message, but it's always been around. It's not something that's new. It's always underlying what we see as the spiritual teachings in the world. And what it is, the possibility that's being suggested is that there is no such thing as an individual. But actually the individual energy, the separate individual energy, is actually artificial. And it's inconstant. It comes and goes in the day. And every night when we go to sleep, in deep sleep, there is no separate individual. There is no me. There's nothing but what is. And so that construct of the individual, which is seems so powerful and so important, can begin to fall apart. It can crumble. That whole sense of being an individual can crumble. It's like what we're talking about here is a kind of death. It's a kind of end of a really an illusory energy. So we can talk together in words about that. And we can talk about the ideas that are collected around the construct of me. Because there are ideas and beliefs that people form about who they are and what they're doing and where they can go. And it's possible here that whole construct might fall apart. Because, well, as I said at the beginning, this is a message not for the seeker. What happens here, if you listen to what's going on here, is that the seeking energy, the seeking need, is constantly starved here. It just isn't fed at all. The only answer you'll get to any question you ask, and this is nothing to do with this thing here, by the way. This is not my message. It's just coming out of nowhere. And what it does is, in response to any question at all, it continuously points back to the reality that all there is this. All there is what is. Just this. The infinite. All there is the infinite. This is the infinite. There's only the infinite. There's only the absolute. There's only the formless, appearing to be form, appearing to be relative, appearing to be a story. The story, the whole appearance of time, story, and the horizontal sense that seems to make is only an appearance. It's simply no thing appearing to be something. And so we can share together with that, and also there'll be something else that's going on which is absolutely silent and beyond words and beyond comprehension, and it's about energy. Separation, essentially, is a contracted energy. It's a tiny child, suddenly the energy, which is boundless, also can appear and seem to be contracted in the body. Suddenly there's something in here. When I was Tony Parsons, when I thought I really was a person, then I lived and I sensed that I lived only within this skin. This skin was my boundary, and everything outside this skin was separate to this. And there was always a sense that it didn't matter what I did all those things that crazy seekers do, Vipassana and self-synchronization. But somewhere with all of that, I knew there was a sense somewhere, this isn't what it's about. This isn't about me having to change. It's about something that is absolutely beyond me. It's beyond me. I'm not going to get this. So energetically, what can happen is that contracted sense of being me can melt back into the boundlessness. And the whole dream of being somebody in charge of their lives collapses with it. It's awful. It's awful for the individual. It's frightening for the individual. But that's what this is about. It's about the end. This is about the end of you.
So, this is an invitation to put stupid questions. Alright? Alright? So, I'm good in putting stupid questions.
Okay.
Okay. So, my question, so my mind puts a question and then he plays somewhat the possum.
He plays
the possum.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it seems that he doesn't want to hear your answer.
Oh,
yeah.
There's no question about that. Seeking mind does not want this. This is the last thing seeking.
So please be patient with me. Okay.
I've been nasty.
Okay. So yesterday you said something about the hypnosis of the mind. So this belief I can improve things, and I'm working as a hypnotherapist. So the basic assumption is it is possible to change things. So the people who come to me expect that this work will improve.
Absolutely.
It seems that this is the case.
Oh.
So some come and leave and quit smoking, for example.
Oh, right.
Or some come and feel better.
Yeah. Oh, there are things that apparent persons can do to feel better for a little while.
Okay.
For a little while.
Hey, I understand you. This is fascinating. Okay, for a while.
So in the story.
The story.
In the story.
Okay, so can you say something? The interesting thing for me, for my mind, is this conscious, unconscious. My mind agrees that when you say you cannot change things conscious, but there's still the belief that you can change things unconscious. So the life changes, but it's not me who is doing this. Yeah, it seems to change for itself. So can you say something to this?
Well, things can appear to change, but change is a story. And the story is part of the construct of the illusion that there is a person who's living horizontally or going around a ring called the story of my life. And it seems sometimes in that there can be an experience of change for the better or the worse. But what's really happening is just a series of, for the dream, for the seeker, it seems just like a series of one event after another, better or worse, in something called time. And whether it's an unconscious change or a conscious change doesn't really matter very much, because once it seems to be a better change, then the seeker thinks that they become conscious of an improvement. But all of that is simply a story based on the dream or the imagined construct or reality of someone who's in a story that they can make better. So as I said before, all of that is totally illusory, and it has nothing to do with the root of the dissatisfaction that people feel, and that is to do with separation. So you could help somebody get over their relationships with women for a while, or stop smoking, but none of that addresses or looks at the source of the symptom of not getting on with women or wanting to smoke a lot, which is separation. And nothing can end that separation from the perception of there being a separate individual in a story. The individual, the illusion can't dispel itself. So the person can't dispel themselves. What is finally longed for in all of the seeking is the absence of me. That's not usually recognized, although it is in some fields like Buddhism and so on. But the absence of me is the freedom that is longed for. And anything that you do with the me in the story is just elastoplast. Do you know what elastoplast is? Plaster. It's just a temporary healing or a symptom, and it's got nothing to do with the source of all of that. All suffering comes from separation.
But it's okay to play this game, yes?
Well, you can't play it or not play it. The individual is utterly helpless. The individual is a puppet responding to unconscious